The largest major exodus over the past year occurred in Baltimore as residents fled. The second largest exodus was San Francisco. Now, I can't speak to exactly why people are fleeing from Baltimore, but it may have something to do with the loss of like 700 officers, or I should say a shortage of like 700 police officers. Crime is absolutely on the rise, and regular people, well, if they're not going to live in a big city, it's certainly not going to be Baltimore. But for the sake of the data that we have, we need to talk about San Francisco because the crime has gotten so bad, people are fleeing. And when asked why people are leaving, or more importantly, I actually have data showing that when asked about what's going on in San Francisco, many people in San Francisco now who haven't even left are saying they are considering leaving due to escalating crime. From that, we could extrapolate the likely reason many people are fleeing San Francisco is that it is being run into the ground by lunatics. This guy, Chesa Boudin, he's facing a recall effort. He is the child of Weather Underground extremists and one of these progressive DAs who gets in and says, we're going to let all the people go, do whatever they want. It's very Joker-esque, isn't it? We release all the prisoners and let them run rampant through the streets. That's what it sounds like they're doing. They're letting people go, often people we know to be guilty of crimes. Now, in many circumstances, it's hard because we want to err on the side of innocent until proven guilty. But come on, you got videos of this dude filling up a trash bag at a what was it, a CVS, and then with a bike in the store riding out. I mean, come on. You got to stop those people, right? I love it. Well, the mainstream media, which is in many ways run by the left, puts out this narrative where they're like, actually, it's not true that crime, that shoplifting is on the rise. We all saw the video of the garbage bag, but is shoplifting really getting bad? No. And they say shoplifting is going down. Amazing. They then mention that like prosecutions or something for these are going down as well. And it's like, maybe the reason on paper it looks like it's going down is because people stopped calling the police about it because the police stopped enforcing it. Which brings me to the bigger point of this whole piece. Wow. In San Francisco, Target is closing at 6 p.m. That's crazy. You get out of work. It's at 5 o'clock. You're driving home, and you're like, I gotta hit Target before they close. But they close at 6 now. Why did they close at 6? The shoplifting has gotten bad, and they know it. Walgreens shutting down. The shoplifting has gotten too bad, and they know it. There's human crap all over the streets, and the media is like, actually, shoplifting's not that bad. It's actually down. Sure. Then Target and Walgreens are like, we're gonna give up money. We don't want, no, please spare me. These large retail corporations want to make money, and they're making their decisions based on whether or not they will make or lose money. Shoplifting is getting bad in these places. I don't know how you survive a death spiral like this. You may know about the Detroit death spiral. In Detroit, there is really high, the cost of living in terms of like water bill, that's a good place to start, is high. Why? Let's say you have a water infrastructure that costs $1 million per month to run. So that means for every, million people, they spend $1. So let's say you got 1 million people living in the city, $1 million a month, $1 for everybody. 500,000 people leave, now it's $2 for everybody. You see how this goes? 250,000 people leave, now it's $4 per person. It's actually way more than that. What happens is once the jobs leave Detroit, people leave, stores close. With less access to amenities, a lower standard of living, people start leaving saying, even if I have money, why would I want to live here? As those people leave, property tax revenue goes down. It is a death spiral. And the more people leave, the faster the city dies. Same thing happens with shopping malls. Now, for a place like Detroit, they lost the auto industry. Because of that, well, they face this death spiral. But it's possible to reverse this if you only bring in more jobs and find a source of revenue. The problem for San Francisco is the death spiral is caused by ideological extremists who are like, we got people taking dumps in the street. Instead of actually citing them or solving the problem in through some actual discussion or dialogue with the city, we're going to create the poop patrol to go around just hosing it off the streets. So the problem never gets solved. They shuffle it into the street and then probably into the ocean, into the bay maybe. They don't solve the problems. They keep electing more of the same lunatics who keep running who keep just crashing the city worse and worse into the ground. From KPIX, CBS SF Bay, Poll: San Francisco residents consider relocating as crime worsens, quality of life in decline. This is an extreme death spiral for one of the most prominent cities. I'll tell you this: property values will tank, investments will burn up, and the power of Silicon Valley will be dispersed, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Let the oligarchs run their city into the mud. CBS says, as San Francisco tries to bounce back from the devastating impact of COVID-19, crime and homelessness now rank among the highest levels of concerns among local residents, many who are contemplating relocating, according to a new poll. Well, as we've already seen, the second largest exodus in the country over the past year was from San Francisco. The poll was released by the SF Chamber of Commerce and based on feedback from more than 500 residents who are registered to vote. It found that more than 40% say they plan to move out of the city in the next few years. 40% of San Francisco residents polled. Okay, we're extrapolating data here. That's how these surveys work. But they said of registered voters. How many people aren't even registered to vote? Half? A little bit less? Could this number be way higher? Lindsay Stevens just finished moving out over the weekend. Quote, "There's nothing worse than seeing such a beautiful place in such disarray. And I really thought I was going to be sad when the movers loaded up the last container on Saturday, and I've never been more relieved." After more than 12 years in SF, Stevens recently sold her place and moved to the Palm Springs area. I honestly think in the last 3 years, we've seen a massive decline in the quality of life, and that was only enhanced over COVID. The homelessness has been a severe problem. People are not feeling safe walking their dog. The number of break-ins seems to be constantly on the rise. Feelings are reflected in the results of the Chamber's poll. 80% of residents say crime has worsened in recent years. 70% feel the quality of life has declined. 88% says homelessness has worsened, and they are all correct. 76 also believe that an increasing number of police officers in high crime neighborhoods should be a high priority. Increasing. 76% said more cops, please. I'm sorry. We're on the defund the police train. So no. You voted in Chesa Boudin. You get what you deserve. You get what you asked for. Now, let me just tell you something. If there's a dude and he's like sitting on a bridge and he's fishing, minding his own business, and along comes a guy with a crazy hat and he's like, "If you elect me commissioner of this bridge, I will destroy it completely while you all stand upon it." And then all of these people are like, I want to vote for him. Then he destroys the bridge. That guy who's fishing and minding his own business, where was he to stand up and pay attention to the destruction of his community? He wasn't there. While I sympathize for him losing and everyone's falling into a bunch of the people just run to the shores saying, "Oh no, the bridge is being destroyed. We better run away." Y'all voted for this. You want me to feel bad for you? Now there be yet a small group on one side saying, stop, don't give this guy the powers to destroy the bridge. I sympathize with them. If you're somebody who lives in SF, who has fought the good fight, who voted for the right people and said no to this insanity, then you have my respect and you have my empathy and my sympathy, But there are too many people in these places. Perhaps now you need to recognize they're going to light that bridge on fire and it's going to collapse where it stands with everybody on it. And you need to get off before that happens. Quote, "I think safety is a huge concern even 2 years ago when I initially moved back to the city. I never viewed certain neighborhoods as necessarily unsafe," said Minku Lee of San Francisco. The 24-year-old resident became a victim himself this past Friday. He said he was headed to happy hour on 3rd Street near Oracle Park with his friends when he was racially and physically attacked by a homeless man. He said a slur or two forcibly pushed me over, tripped me. "I really startled by the incident," said Lee. San Francisco? A hate crime? Oh, that can't be. San Francisco is where all the good and noble oligarchs live, where they want to make us all love each other because hate speech is wrong. You see that photo of Mark Zuckerberg on the wave ride or whatever it's called? It's the board where you pump. I don't know what they're called. And he's waving the American flag. Oh, spare me, dude. You are lighting this country on fire in more ways than one. An overwhelming 82% of those polled said they'd like to see more caseworkers on the streets to help people with mental illnesses. Nearly 75% supported more temporary shelter for homeless people. Earlier this month, Mayor London Breed announced a $1 billion investment to help fix the problem over the next 2 years. It would include funding housing and mental health services. Check this out. Target, Walgreens make drastic changes due to increase in San Francisco thefts. According to the California Retailers Association, 3 cities in our state are among the top 10 when it comes to organized retail crime. LA, SF, Sacramento. Bravo, California. And bravo to all of you in California who voted to burn the place to the ground and then have the gall to flee to somewhere else like Austin, and then you'll vote to burn that place to the ground too. Just going to keep happening. Already we are seeing the negative impact it is having in San Francisco with stores permanently shutting down or closing early. It has become one of the most pressing issues in our city today. Target has now acknowledged that SF is the only city in America where they have decided to close some stores early because of the escalating retail crime. For more than a month, we've been experiencing a significant and alarming rise in theft and security incidents at our San Francisco stores, similar to reports from other retailers in the area. Target is the only store in San Francisco to make changes because of the continuous shoplifting. After 10 p.m., the 7-Eleven on Drum Street in the financial district only does business through a metal door. But first, you have to ring the bell to let them know you're outside. This window was installed like 2 to 3 months ago because it was not safe. Sometimes they would break that glass of the door, explained manager Bobby Singh. Look at this. We had the video I mentioned earlier where there's a guy rides his bike into CVS and just starts shoveling stuff into a garbage bag, hops on a bike in the store and leaves. And their security guy, was like TS4 security, just grabs the bag and then films. What are they going to do? Cops won't respond. Why should any of these people get involved? Walgreens has already closed several stores for the same reason, and security guards like Kevin Greathouse are told not to physically engage with those shoplifting. Quote, it's going to be lawsuits. Obviously, we don't want ourselves or anybody else to get injured while we're out here attempting to make these apprehensions and leave it to law enforcement. Law enforcement, of course, won't respond because in San Francisco, I think in California, it's anything less than, what is it, like $900? Not what is it? It's not a crime. I forgot what it was. I think it's like a misdemeanor and the cops just don't even respond to it. So people will go in, steal expensive phones, and the cops just say, oh, whatever. He carries with him a handgun, a taser, and pepper spray. But thankfully, he's never had to use them. On the other hand, he says people shoplifting have at times threatened him with a knife. I don't have any intention of getting stabbed for $60 worth of stuff, he added. Grains of sand, do they ever make a heap? You know, there's a video of me in Boston. I got invited on Tucker Carlson a few years ago because of this video where an Antifa guy starts swinging at me, but he's like trying to get me to flinch, I guess. And I just stand there unmoving. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like swatting at me, trying to get me to leave, and I won't move. I see a lot of these videos where Antifa get in people's faces and the people start walking backwards. I understand some of these people may actually hit you. So you know what I did? I tightened up my abs. I prepared to get hit. That's all I can say. Here's the way I view it. It's only $60. I'm not going to get stabbed over that. Yeah, I get it. I wouldn't get stabbed over that either. I mean, it's $60 worth of stuff and it ain't my stuff, right? Think about what happens, though. Eventually, the dam breaks. There may be a point in time where someone trying to steal something would get beaten. I'm not advocating for that. I'm saying, yeah, that would happen. They'd grab you, they'd throw you down, and they'd beat you. In fact, in Chicago, when I was growing up, they still would. They would grab you and they would just beat you up. I mean, that's Chicago, I guess. Think about what happens if you're a shoplifter and you're like, if I get caught, I get shot. Not going to do it. Think about what happens if you live in West Virginia and you decide to break into someone's home. People in West Virginia love their guns. So you are very likely to die. Now, death isn't a deterrent for some people, especially those who are desperate. But in many places like New Jersey or San Francisco or whatever, they say there's a lot of break-ins. Well, you're not legally allowed to defend your home. So why would you? You can't. So they know they can break into whatever they want. When it comes to these shoplifting incidents, it is that they have set the standard because no one is willing to risk their neck for anybody else, especially for $60 worth of stuff. The criminals know I can just take whatever I want, man. Doesn't matter. They're not going to intervene for any amount of money. There you go. People can't defend themselves. People can't use physical force to restrain someone stealing from their stores. So people won't. And the criminals will do whatever they want. Let this be a lesson to the gun control people. Why is this man in the CVS stealing everything? Doesn't he know that crime is illegal? Yeah, wonderful. So you tell people that if they intervene, they could be civilly liable. They won't. You tell the criminals, you're a criminal anyway. What do you care if you get sued or arrested? You're taking that risk. There you go. Regular people refuse to intervene. Security guards refuse to intervene. Everyone over time slowly realizes that no one will intervene and you can do whatever you want. The New York Times had an article, it was hilarious, where this columnist moves to SF and he noticed when he was in the store buying stuff, people would walk in and just take stuff and walk out. And he was like, is that normal? Like, is paying optional? And the cashier shrugs. Oh. Why would anyone pay? Eventually get to the point where here's what happens. A regular Joe walks in and he's like, I would like to buy this bottle of unsweetened iced tea. It's delicious. And then he sees everyone else just taking stuff. And then he thinks to himself, why am I the sucker? Why am I the sucker paying for this when no one else has to? And he goes, whatever. And he walks out with it. And then no one does anything. And once the regular person just doesn't care anymore, why would anyone else? It's interesting because LA operates on the honor system for their trains. Or at least when I lived there. The turnstiles, you just walk right through them. You only need a ticket if the cops show up. So a lot of people, there's a few things. Poor people won't buy their ticket. And then eventually they'll get out of the train and the cops will be there asking to see people's tickets. And if they don't have one, they get a physical citation. But I know a bunch of people who would say in California, or I should say I've talked to people in California a long time ago, who would say things like, if you have one of the tap cards where you tap it and it charges you, you just walk past. And the cops might be like, where's your ticket? And you can be like, oh, here's my tap card. And then if you tap it and it doesn't show that you used it, you can be like, I don't know, must be an error. So what happens is people will fill up their tap card with like $30. And you're supposed to tap the thing and then walk through, but you can walk through without doing that. It then records that you did pay, right? People would just get out. They would see that there's like $50 on it. And they'd be like, it must have not tapped or read when I walked through. And the cops will be like, yeah, he's got money. It's fine. People eventually just abuse the honor system. And they say, I don't care. A lot of people don't. But it's like a grand experiment they're doing in California. And it seems to not be working out all that well. Letting people do whatever they want and just lie, cheat, steal, and loot stores will eventually result in people just saying, that's the acceptable, that's the norm. Then why will these stores operate? And thus bringeth the death spiral. Here's what happens in SF. You get some lunatic like Chesa Boudin facing a recall effort in San Francisco. They say the first effort was organized, March 4th. Recall organizers have until August 11th to submit at least 51,000 signatures. They say a second recall effort was started on April 28th by another group. They have until October 25th. So we'll see what happens. You get lunatics like this who are ideologically driven. They let criminals go. They stop prosecuting certain crimes. They defend the left. They defend the extremists. And then people start looting stores. No one can stop them. The stores eventually start shutting down. Now people who live in SF say, I need to go get a prescription or I need to go to the store. Oh, the store's closed. What if you work until 5:30? I mean, it's not unusual. Say you're 9 to 5. You're out the door a little bit after 5. You make it home. It's 5:30 and you're like, can I make it to Target? No, they're closing at 6. So what do? Take off work? Okay, now you tell your boss, in order for me to get to Target, I gotta go to Walgreens for my prescriptions, and I gotta go to Target to pick up, whatever, some juice to take my medicine, or I need to get food, I need to go grocery shopping. And now they say, do it on your day off. And you say, I can't. They've shut down all the stores around me and they're only open until 6 now, so I need to go now. It's just gonna create pressure. It's not absolute. Some people say, fine, I'll go on my day off, I guess. But it'll create pressure where it's more and more of an inconvenience. I was reading one story about an elderly man who needed medicine, and he had to walk now several miles, or a couple of miles, to go to the Walgreens because the one by him shut down due to shoplifting. The inconvenience becomes severe. The stores shut down. The amenities are gone. So now you don't got a cafe anymore. You don't got a Walgreens because the Walgreens stops. Now less people come to the area. So the Starbucks revenue drops because less people are just coming to the area. You might be like, I'm going to Target. Oh, there's a Starbucks across the street. So they lose money. Eventually, Starbucks says there's no point in being here, so they shut down. Now you're in a neighborhood with no businesses, and you're like, I don't want to live here. Too bad. Now the property value tanks. Now nobody wants to live there at all, and that's what we're seeing. You see how massive that number was in the poll? What are we talking about, 40%? 40% said they plan to move out of the city in the next few years. If that's true, we're talking millions of people fleeing SF. If they leave, tax revenue will plummet. The city's death spiral will become much, much more severe. And where do these people go? Austin, Colorado, and they'll vote in the same trash that destroyed their city in the first place, like a plague sweeping across the country, voting in lunatics who will burn everything down. And they'll justify why Chesa Boudin is the right person for the job. You destroyed the city. It was your vote. And now you want to bring that somewhere else? I'll tell you this. If you want to get out of these cities, just when in Rome, that's what you do. You move to Austin. Austin's pretty liberal. You move to Texas. You say, okay, Texas, you do your thing because you got it going well here. They don't get it. They vote for these grifter, sycophant psychopaths who will say whatever and do whatever it takes. And this is what you get. You end up with crime-ridden cities that eventually collapse, and they will gut the value of the system and then flee, and the city can't recover. I don't know how you recover from this. This is mass looting on a massive scale. Just don't come to where I live. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.